Hey everybody, and welcome back to my channel Powerful Perspectives. It's been a while since I have recorded something here. I've been meaning to get back into it, and I just have had other priorities on my mind, and so I've been taken away from it a little bit for a while, but I'm happy to be back. I wanted to talk today about something that's been on my mind recently, something that is kind of a recurring theme in my life that I've recognized, and it has to do with happiness. Growing up, I heard a lot that happiness is a choice. Just people in my life, I grew up in a religious community, and so I think this was part of maybe that attitude or that belief system. In terms of we believe very strongly in agency and in personal choice over our circumstances, over our feelings, over our decisions, obviously. We don't really believe that we're just reactionary beings. We don't really believe that, we don't believe in determinism. We don't believe that everything just happens and that we're just reactive beings. We believe that we have free will. And so this is something that I heard a lot growing up, that happiness is a choice. You can choose to be happy. You can choose most of your emotions. So you can choose to be angry. You can choose to be patient or not. That a lot of these emotions that most of the world would tell you these days are not really in our control. We live in a world where we tend to kind of I don't scapegoat or outsource, not outsource, but we kind of tend to project a lot of our emotions on other people, both in terms of what we are feeling, but also the reason for what we are feeling. We say often, so-and-so made me angry, or they made me feel this way, right? We attribute the motivation or the reason, the source of our emotions, oftentimes to other people or to circumstances or to our environment, to things that are happening around us. And so it's not very common, maybe, especially in today's society, to hear, okay, I am responsible for my own emotions, or I can choose how I feel. And I don't know necessarily that applies generally to all emotions, but I do believe that there is something to be said about it with regards to happiness. And this is something that I've recognized and kind of wrestled with a little bit throughout my own life, because I heard people say this often. They would say, you can choose to be happy, or happiness is a choice. And I didn't understand how or why, especially when I was feeling sad, upset, angry, frustrated, when I felt stuck, when I just couldn't, I was trying to push forward, I was trying to accomplish something, and it just wouldn't come together. It just wouldn't fall into place. Yeah, when I was annoyed, when I was resentful, it's really hard. When I was stressed, it's really hard in these moments to just say, oh yeah, I'm going to choose to be happy. I do know some people who seem to have that gift where, they just recognize how they're feeling and they say, you know what, I don't want to feel this way, I'm going to focus on something else, and they just do it, and it just works. It just snaps in somehow. For me, this has always been extremely difficult, but I've pondered this question a lot throughout my life. How can one choose to be happy? And an insight that came to me some time ago as I was thinking about this, because again, it's kind of a recurring thought, a recurring question that I've come back to throughout the years. And what I came to believe, or what I came to kind of see or recognize or understand, is that you choose to be happy, or you choose happiness through choosing to do those things that make you happy. And in hearing that, it might just kind of sound like common sense. It might sound like, duh, Brandon, of course, if you choose to do things that make you happy, you'll be happy, probably, right? But it's a little bit more complicated, I think, than we might see it at face value. Um, what I've recognized, at least in my own life, and maybe it's similar for many of you, in difficult times in our lives, it's those things that normally, like intrinsically, naturally make us happy that kind of tend to disappear first. Like we stop doing them. So I'll give a personal example. I absolutely love music. It's something that I've always loved since I was a kid. Growing up, I had the advantage or the blessing of growing up with a piano in the home. And so even since before I could really reach up to the piano keys, like my parents would sometimes just sit me on the bench and I would be there with my little like plastic animals banging on the on the keys. And just from as long as I can remember, I have loved music. And something that I've noticed in my own life is that in times of high stress, when things become busy, when I just have a lot of other priorities to focus on, a lot of other things to do, music is one of the things that disappears first from my life. I stop engaging with it. I stop singing in the shower. Those who know me well or who have lived around me or with me know that I love to sing in the shower, especially when I'm happy or when things are going well. When I'm not, whether it's that I'm sad or I'm upset, but even just when I'm stressed or when things are busy, like when I'm overwhelmed, I stop singing in the shower. I stop listening to music. Like I won't have my earbuds in. Like I won't listen to music. Whether it's like while I'm driving, whether it's just like I like to go for walks in nature if I have the chance. That's another thing. Like another separate example. Like I love nature, right? I'll stop going for walks. I'll stop spending time in nature during these times. The things that and just originally or like intrinsically bring me joy when I do them, I stop doing them. And I have to make a conscious decision, a conscious effort to bring those things back into my life, to actually start doing them again. And when I do, it's like a breath of fresh air. It's like, why did I ever stop? Like, this makes me so happy. I've been missing this. When I do choose to start singing again, when I do take a moment just to listen to some music again, after a long time of not doing it, I wonder where it ever went or why I ever stopped. I don't notice it happening most of the time. I don't notice myself stopping to do it or stopping doing it, right? It just kind of comes on gradually. It sneaks up on me and I just kind of fall out of the habit. But I don't think that's coincidence. I think it's an interesting relationship, and they kind of, it goes together, that when life throws hard times at you, or at least, again, I'm speaking for myself here from my own experience, but I imagine it could apply more generally as well. I tend to stop doing those things that make me happy. And I think the way that we can choose happiness, choose to be happy, is choose to do those things that make us happy. And for every person, it'll be different, right? I think this is one of the most important parts, really, or one of the most important like elements to think about and to consider, is that not everything that makes us happy makes someone else happy, and that's completely fine. That's okay. Like some people love to escape into a book and just read and immerse themselves in a new world through reading. Some people will enjoy, listening to music, going out in nature. Some people will enjoy socializing, meeting together with friends, going to a club, going to a dance or something. I don't know, just meeting up with someone, and having a good time with friends. Some people might like, I don't know, what are some other sports? Like, you know, like going and throwing a ball around, or, you know, like we all have different things that make us happy. And I think that's one of the great wonders and miracles of life. I think we're born into this world with different passions, and we sometimes, some of them, like we start out with, like we just, you know, like me and music, for example, like I loved it since I was a kid. And it's interesting because I don't know if I can say that I necessarily inherited that from my environment. Yes, there was a piano in our house, but I'm the firstborn child in my family, and neither of my parents are particularly musical. I do have an aunt who is like a piano teacher, but growing up, like I had opportunities to practice piano a little bit with her when I had the opportunity. But she lived 2 hours away from me, right? And so I was able to see her decently often, but not terribly often. And so yeah, I don't necessarily think that love of music was necessarily like encultured into me or indoctrinated. Like I don't know that it was necessarily a result of my environment. I think it just came as a personal passion. But regardless, like there's other examples that I can give of things that I have come to love that I didn't originally. Those who knew me growing up, like in my childhood and adolescence, will be able to tell you that I was never a huge athletic person. There were some activities that I enjoyed, but they weren't the common ones. Like I was not your typical like hockey player, football player, soccer player, baseball player. Like it was not my forte. It was not my passion. And I had some other siblings who enjoyed this a lot more. Particularly, I had one sister. Both sisters really enjoyed it, but there's one in particular who just was really passionate about running. And she would invite me as I was a teenager to go out and run with her. And that to me did not sound like a fun time. It was the opposite of what I would want to do with my free time. But it meant a lot to her. And she invited different members of our family at the time to go with her, and nobody really did at first, so she would just go by herself. And I love my family, and I love my siblings, and I love people in general, and I love engaging with their passions. I love seeing people passionate about what they're doing and enjoying what they're doing, and discovering different people's hobbies and passions like through their eyes. And so I decided to kind of swallow some pride and try something new, and I went out and I went jogging with my sister. And yeah, I didn't like it at first necessarily. I was obviously, she had been doing it for a while. She was used to it. She had developed some more of that stamina and that core strength and everything. And I was pretty winded pretty quickly, but she was patient with me, and I came to love it. And it got to a point even where I would go on jogs by myself, which I never would have believed or thought, previously that I would ever do. I would never have considered that I would do something like that. And so there are some passions and things that can make us happy that, we take from other people, or that are not necessarily originally a part of our lives, but we kind of grow into them. But regardless of where that hobby or passion comes from, choosing to do it, right? And knowing ourselves well enough to recognize what things make us happy. And for some of us, that's harder. I think like many of us maybe have not taken a moment to stop and consider and think about what are those things in my life that really just like genuinely, intrinsically make me happy. Those things that like, if I participate in this activity, I can't not be happy. It just, like I can't help it. It just fills my heart and my soul with joy. I think each of us have something like that. And again, it won't be the same thing for every person. And it may not be a big thing. Like it may not be one of the typical examples that I mentioned earlier. It might be something really specific, really unique to you. And that's fine. But I would, I guess, invite and encourage each of us, myself included, to seek that out, to really like look in our lives and ask ourselves those questions. Ask ourselves, okay, what are those things that really, truly, just naturally make me happy? And pay attention. Pay attention in your own life to those moments that are just hard, difficult, overwhelming, stressful, like busy, and see see if you can recognize this pattern that I mentioned earlier. Like those things that just naturally make you happy, do they tend to disappear for you in those moments that are harder? If so, you know, maybe one way that we can choose to be happy is by choosing to bring those things back in, making an extra effort to do those things that put a smile on our face. Yeah, just an invitation for all of us. And I leave that with you for now. Love to hear your comments and suggestions and, yeah, your reflections if you have any. And I'll see you next time.